Everything started for me actually in 2015 when I started working in Finland as a researcher on topic of children's health and city planning. And basically what our research sort of as if you want, unearthed, it has established very clear association between the urban environment and children's health. Directly. We started to make a very huge research, and what we started to find actually it was that children that lived in area where there was a lot of greenery or countryside or even agricultural land had actually less harmful bacteria on the skin. The immune defense system was much stronger. The gut microbiota, there were lower levels of bacteria that are associated with inflammations. But why I'm telling you this is because then as a researcher, what I saw is that, okay, we are spending 10 years, millions and millions of euros to do this research. And then in a city actually where the research was carried out by us, they are destroying the forest completely. So they just cut it, destroy it, and fully build it. So basically, on the one hand, they invest quite a lot in research. The result of the research is that we need to transform cities for the good, but then the transformation is for the bad. What happened here is that there was a design competition, and it's quite common to do participatory planning, which means that the design entries are voted by citizens. So these were the two best projects. But then when you started to look at the comments, actually, most citizens were actually saying that the proposals are quite bad. The local residents were not involved on time. So overall, I started to feel, okay, there is a strong disconnect between research and policymakers. There is disconnect between policymakers and citizens. I wanted to do something about it. And what I wanted to do about it, I wanted to create a platform where all those different stakeholders could actually talk to each other. The issue of the way that people collaborate is that it's quite often only through natural language. But what was really needed, it was to use this collective intelligence of all these people to actually understand how cities should be transformed. And the second thing is that we needed to do this with enticing images, because only with an image we really understand the impact of our ideas and the impact of our plans. And then eventually we had to establish a new way to educate, to actually create moments where debate between humans could actually occur, but in a very nice and joyful way. So I started to think basically about AI. If there is one thing that images can do is that they can communicate more than our words. So AI can help us to basically ideate, and it helps us to explore what we really want. And this comes to the second step, which is evaluation, right? So let's, now that if we have a clear idea developed, let's evaluate if that idea would work in our city. And again, this is what AI is really good at. And then the last step is deliberation. We must take decisions collectively. A lot of deliberation is done through voting, but deliberation is something that if it's done face-to-face, actually it enables the possibility for people to change their mind. What you're seeing right now here is citizens divided in groups that they're using AI to co-design a street in Helsinki. So they came up with the idea of let's make a pedestrian street. They have evaluated with AI, they could see how the street would look like, and then eventually they have decided. And then together with the help of designers and engineers, the street was built. When we do this collectively in person, we're able to talk to each other. So one thing that happened during this workshop is that everybody wanted a bike lane. But then once this bike lane was virtually built with artificial intelligence, one person stood up and said, hey, if we're going to build this bike lane, look, we're going to destroy the pavement of the historic city. So the citizens, that's why they've decided no bike lane. The best part of democracy, for me at least, it's not voting, but it's having the ability to change your vote. You want the bike lane? Through discussion, through friction, through visualizations, you understand, actually, no, I don't want the bike lane. And you have the opportunity to change your mind. And what happened is that after the citizens, after the street were built and the citizens were brought there, one of the main comments was, this is different, but I see my ideas are in it. This is sort of kind of what impact also means, right? That citizens felt that they were part of this development process. AI it's quite important actually in what we do, because it's really able to synthesize knowledge and idea. What we're seeing, what really matters actually is that people inhabit a physical space when they do that. Because what really matters is not that a computer, it generates an image. What really matters is that image becomes a matter of discussion. If we want the voices of those people and children to be heard, we actually need to convince national and municipal government to actually accept the process. Because if we would just do bottom-up, citizens have expressed their ideas, but if their ideas would not be accepted, we wouldn't do much with it. So we usually start from the government. So we first try to work with national governments or municipal governments. So we need to get first the mayors on board. We need to have them to say, yes, let's do participatory planning. And yes, let's hear the voices of the citizens. Social imagination, it's one of the main faculty of our minds. Like imagination is one of the most beautiful things that we do and that we learn since we are children. What is interesting about this approach is that we can create collective imaginaries, because when many different people want the same idea of the future of the city, then this idea becomes much stronger. And this is the case of Helsinki, actually, where citizens made their own plan as well. And this collective imaginary became so strong that then the city planning office had to take it almost as a document to create new design in the city. An image can be so powerful that can scare the mayor. Let's say if a city organizes a workshop and then a group of children create an image which they really love, and this workshop was held at City Hall, then the city is scared that the image has so much power and they can never realize it. A very large number of municipality does not want to engage with children or adults in creating images because they're scared that this image will become more powerful than what they can do as mayors. There is a bit of a contraposition here because imagination is also actually seen as a tool for deception. So while it is a beautiful tool to imagine the future, it's something that actually, if it's used, especially by governments or somebody that wants to create propaganda, actually images can create, instead of inspiration, they can create deceptions.
You already said that the people feel safer typically, but so how much does the AI say, well, you might think this is better, but actually it's not necessarily what you should put there?
Yeah, actually, this is a huge part of what we do and what somebody who runs a workshop does. When he prepares the workshop, you train the model to do something. So you tell okay, in Germany, bike lanes can only be this wide. Or in Germany, bike lanes can only be painted in green. So you give this instruction set, which means you're biasing the model. And this is kind of a way to prepare the workshop. If a participant says, make the street better for pedestrians, it does it according to the regulations. But there are two kinds of workshops. And this kind is the one that I never suggest doing. Why? Is because it's so much more important to first open up the imagination. And then if you want, restrict it. Introducing a bias, though, it's also very dangerous. Because what it happens then is that this is where governments or workshop leaders can then actually take control of the workshop. For example, let's say that I'm a citizen and I say a green area, but before I have given very precise instruction not to do certain things to the AI, then it becomes a very dangerous system to actually control again information. So then we're again in the situation where the image is not anymore a means for social imagination, but for social control. That's why it's a very, very tricky balance to do this. And that's why it's really important when we do this kind of project. It's always with the local NGO. What I'm seeing is that what we really need in society is not so much of people using AI to create images, but people collaborating to plan the city. So we're seeing already that this is happening around the world, that AI is becoming so important. So there's been some surveys this year done. Around 80% of students worldwide are using Gen AI. Nearly 90% use them for studies. So it means that when citizens or people would participate to this kind of workshop, using AI, it becomes something almost like passive. At the same time, what we're seeing, people that start to build confidence in the Gen AI, they're starting to lose critical thinking. Because what it happens is that you trust that the AI does what you need, so you don't even check anymore what it's doing for you. You need to have a person who is able to ask the right questions when the images are being produced. So you see the image, and then the question is, okay, try to imagine yourself now in this park on a Sunday evening. Do you feel that this is a good place for you? To make these workshops meaningful, we need to focus on questions that allows participants to look at the image critically. Otherwise, they just choose the most colorful one. One of the main requests that I'm getting, it's nice workshop. How can we use your tool to simulate the workshop itself so that there is no humans involved? What participant, we could actually simulate the participation process. And that's what I felt, okay, this is scary. Then for me, the main metric is that I want to engage the most human possible. I need to convince the government not to automatize the project. That's why also it's kind of co-plan, collaborate, because urbanist AI, it sounds like, okay, we have now an AI urbanist, so we don't need the urbanists anymore. But co-PlanAI means we want collaborative AI in planning. So we want that basically we collaborate in the process. There is a human collaboration. But so to conclude, I think that one of the most inspiring thoughts for me, at least, to start to work on this new project is that computers are becoming more and more important. We actually need to create a team of human. And what makes a team of human different from a computer? 3 things that they can do that computers cannot do is that they can think constructively, which means that when we make a vision together, we can do a vision that is good for us. We can connect meaningfully, which means that we need to facilitate collaboration. So even if computers are involved, we always need to try to make things in person, not online. And then eventually we must act with purpose. So whatever we want to do, it has to be aligned with the goals of humans.